All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Best Self Blueprint. The mission of this podcast is to bring on people who have the experience, knowledge, and insights as to what it takes to truly move that dial towards becoming the best version of yourself. So, these next guests are quite the dietetic duo, currently having spent a combined 33 years as practicing dietitians. In addition to that, they co host a podcast where they discuss nutrition trends, debunk nutrition myths, and share their philosophy of an anti-diet lifestyle. Their passion for health stretches beyond nutrition, as one of them is also a certified personal trainer and the other is an ultra runner. With all their experience and their passion for helping others, this should be a good one. So without further ado, let's meet Annie and Nicole from Between Two Pastries. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going for you?
Oh, fantastic. This is
Good,
one of the best parts of my day, just getting to sit down and have these conversations. So I'm always excited.
good.
So
Awesome.
the best place to start is probably just you two talking about your journey from when you first decided nutrition was the path you wanted to take to now having years and years of practice as well as a podcast under your belt.
Nicole, why don't you start?
All right. So really the foundation for me is I've always been a dancer. So even at a super young age, I knew that there was a combination or a relationship between what you put in your body and how that felt with how you performed as a sport. And so I was always interested in that thought process. And so I was put into the right hands and found dietetics. And so I had, did the usual schooling, became a certified personal trainer on top of it. And then I also went on to do a focus in sports nutrition too. So I work with lots and lots of different types of clientele. So much of my focus is in my practice is under the foundation of behavior in relationship with food in general. And so I do work with some eating disorders as well. But what I find is that everybody who comes to see me, there's always some underlying tone or theme to their actual relationship with food and therefore relationship with themselves. And so with that, people may come to me because they have a thyroid condition or, they think they want to improve their diet in one way, shape or form. But what we're really doing is we're kind of improving a lot of different areas of their life as well. So that's sort of nutshell version with that. In addition to just kind of that was where it all began and where I am presently, I have had a chance to work with so many different types of clientele and working with the professional sports arena as well as amateurs, as well as, high schools and things like that. So yeah, kind of run the gamut with what I've been able to do. And with that being said, comes a lot of experience.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Annie, what about you?
So my journey was a little bit different. I was just a normal high schooler who didn't have a way. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So my parents are both teachers. So I was like, okay, I'll be a teacher. And so I started at Marquette. And I was in the teaching program and I didn't care about it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. But I had a relationship that went so south that I started to struggle myself and kind of reaching for control of everything. And I found myself really focusing in on exercise, which I've always been an athlete. That's never been an issue, but focusing more so on intense exercise and then eating. And so my introduction to dietetics was more so I should learn how to figure this out because health is so important, and I kind of came at it from a really yucky perspective. And so I transferred to Mount Mary and I became a dietitian, long story short. And through going through my own mental health issues, I found this niche working with eating disorder clients. And I absolutely loved it. Like, I've done food service management, I've done sales, I've done personal training, I've done the whole gym thing. I've worked in so many different types of food industries. But my absolute favoriteest client to work with is someone with an eating disorder, as jaded as that may sound, because we don't want anyone with eating disorders, but that is my, most favorite person to work with. And like Nicole said, it is all 100% behavioral. So we're tapping into that and going through different behavioral pieces and certainly, different aspects of their life and all of that kind of stuff. So my journey over the 12 years has really been in different realms of food and nutrition, all different types of clientele, but I really, really enjoy working in behavioral health. I currently work for a behavioral health hospital. My clientele right now at work is suicide and detox, kids and adults. And so I'm a little less with the eating disorders just because it's always good to take breaks from those types of things. And then, Nicole and I have this podcast, and we absolutely have this philosophy of anti-diet, because there's not a human in the world that has succeeded on with dieting or anything, a whole picture, as it not only relates to health and wellness, but like their brain goes at that point. So, that's really where I've started and where I've ended up and what I enjoy to do. I do some teaching as well, which I enjoy. And so it's really been a long but yet short journey. When you say that combined 33 years, it's like, are we that old?
I know.
I was like,
it's amazing. I love it.
So we have a lot of experience, but we're not old. Like, we're not like out of the times
Right.
or anything like that. I just want to clarify that. But yeah, we do have a lot of experience behind us, and our philosophy, honestly, I feel like the philosophy of anti-diet, though, and maybe I'm tangenting to another question, is very much so we are not the norm anymore. Which is really sad. The norm of, moderation and not following diets is so weird and foreign to people. So Nicole and I come at it from what would now be maybe not a standard, application in this world. So I think people really can appreciate it and maybe feel a little bit of a sigh of relief that there's dietitians out there that aren't, eating salads and, things like that. So that's where I'm at this point. And I love being a dietitian. Never is where I thought I would be, but here we are.
Yeah. So you started getting into it, and I was actually, that is a good tangent, because that's where I was going to go next, is
Perfect.
to describe a little bit what the philosophy is about anti-diet. And also you talked about body image when we were emailing back and forth. So dive into that. Like, what do you see the benefits of that as opposed to someone who's, hell-bent on getting on a diet? Yeah, just talk about that a little bit.
Nicole, do you want to start this one?
Yeah, it's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
So
I thought,
well,
take it.
Yeah. So I think, when you really think about it, it's so interesting because like we talk about like this, and again, I might be going all over the place when I talk about this, but the thought just came to mind about, there's so much this concept of that there's this quote unquote obesity issue, right? Like there's some issue that we have to keep focusing on. What we're actually finding is that, that's not necessarily the truth, right? There's so much more beyond that. And when you really think about it, I think the issue is that there's too much history of dieting. And that's where the problem lies, because what happens is the more a person diets, the further they get away from their self and understanding what their body, not what anybody else is saying about their body. They're the owner of their body. And we've gotten so disconnected from that whole concept. And so that is one thing. Sure, both of our practices and even in our podcast, we bring in the physiology of some of these things that we're talking about too. And we can talk about that. And it still comes down to, what do you personally need? And what you need is going to be way different from what someone else needs. And they don't have any power over judging how you do you. And that's essentially, that's sort of total nutshell version of our philosophy and how we operate in general.
But it's also to that point, Nicole, it's also like oh, okay, we're not reinforcing like, well, this person doesn't eat sugar and that's okay because that's that person. Like
Right.
it's, do you know what I mean? That belief is what needs to be challenged. And because
That's right.
when a person says, well, yeah, you're saying I'm an individual and I can, it's my body and I don't want to put sugar in it. That's a
Yeah.
food fear.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
like, that's something that they've like convinced themselves or they've watched on TV or whatever they've
Yep.
learned. So it's really like we have to unspiral all of that just junk that's just lodged in the brain that says, I'm this person
Absolutely.
and I can't eat sugar or
Yep.
whatever it might be, fill in the blank, lactose, whatever.
Right. Right.
So, being anti-diet is not necessarily, everyone can be fat and everyone can, eat what they want and eat cake at all meals. No, what it's saying is you have complete food freedom. You have
Mhm.
choices. You have an ability to have control and power and all of these things. And food doesn't have to have power over you, because
Over
when we
you.
diet,
Mhm.
that's giving food the control and
Right.
saying, I can't ever have this food. And then all of a sudden the pedestal just gets higher and higher and
Right.
the light behind it
Right.
gets bigger and bigger.
Right.
And then we overconsume it and then we feel like
Yep.
crap and shame and all of those things come in, which leads to, the point about body image is that, society, we follow all these diets and society continues to tell us that we suck at life and that, we're
Right.
ugly and that we need to change. Every message is you need to change.
Right. You're not
You
enough.
work,
You're not enough.
you don't do enough work. You do this, that's not enough. You exercise, you should do more. You did a half
Right.
marathon, now do a marathon. Everything is
Right.
more.
Right.
We never feel okay with ourselves. And that is so emblematic in the body image world with magazines, media, diets, all of those things, that people who, are okay, totally healthy or whatever, feel this desire, urge, obligation, if you will, to follow these diets or whatever someone is saying, do these workouts. They hate doing the workouts. They would rather walk or do
Right.
whatever.
Right.
They love cake, but now they've given it up. They don't even eat it at their wedding, like things like
Yeah.
that, which is just like, you're crazy. We can't do these things. And
Mhm.
body image is just like totally, there's so many layers there before a person can even regain that confidence. And media keeps us locked into feeling crappy about ourselves, because the more we feel crappy about ourselves, the more we invest in pills, diets, potions, books,
Mhm.
media. We buy to try to find the answer, and we're never going to find it.
Right.
By doing those things. So taking a stand and say, no, body positivity, you're okay in your body. You accept your body for what it is right now, and other things we can work on. You come back with your labs and you have high blood pressure or cholesterol or sleep apnea or blah, 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 whatever. Then we look at that. But that weight is not an indicator of health, and it's not
Right.
an indicator of image. It doesn't
Right.
need to be.
Right.
We've established that. We've created it as a culture, which
Mhm.
is
And
so,
that's, yeah, completely. And to your point too, like coming in, we're still focusing on their behavior with food and not
Mhm.
always the what's. It's not the what's that always that creates some of these things. It can be most of the time it's just the behavior around it.
Mhm.
That whatever timing is off, or we're missing a few things, and we add things in versus taking things away is essentially what that comes down to as well. It's achieving balance for that particular person.
Right.
But there
Well,
is such this concept of if I have this, I can't ever eat this again, or I can't eat this, or I'm not supposed to eat these foods. Yeah, there's no reason for any of that, like at all. We have to get it out of our minds that food creates a problem.
right.
No, it doesn't. Your
Right.
behavior around food can create a problem.
Right.
I mean, if we want to talk about it in that fashion, but food is not your enemy, period.
Yeah. I always like to say food, food is not the problem. It's the relationship with food. That's the problem. And
Mhm.
people have really, really poor relationships with food, and they have really, really poor relationships with their bodies. And that
Yep.
obviously comes from what's being asked of us in society to look certain ways. And hence there's so much fat phobia, and people are afraid of their own wiggles and jiggles, even though those are the things that like give them support and allow them to have children or allow them to move or allow their digestive tract to work or arms to move. Like people forget, like the wiggles and jiggles can be a really good thing. And those don't dictate if we have a heart attack or diabetes or whatever, but that has been instilled in us as a society. The fear mongering it's off the wall.
You know, newsflash, we don't really want to see your bones. We really don't want to see your bones.
Yeah, no, and more people, you're likely to die from that than having extra weight on you. 100%.
1,000%.
Yeah, I've seen more people, have heart attacks from being too thin.
Anorexia, absolutely. Correct. And that's
and
documented.
Pass.
I mean, that is not.
Yeah, thin, and that scientifically has been proven across the board. So it is really frustrating, and it's really sad because people could live such joyful lives doing what they love and wearing a swimsuit in the summer and going swimming with their kids or whatever, if they stopped these fears around food and body. But it can be really strong for people.
Yeah. Wow, that was an amazing first topic to go into. So I'm just thinking about, there are a lot of people I think who are in that situation who say like, oh great, like don't fear food, that's easier said than done. So what's a good first step for them? Obviously it's not something where all of a sudden you wake up the next morning and it's gone, but what's a good first step to take if that is you, where you're like, I want to get healthy, but I don't know how to change my behavior around food. I don't know how to get rid of that fear. How do they start, getting the ball rolling on that?
By exposing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I go right into exposure work.
Yeah.
I know, Nicole, you maybe baby step better than I do with clients. Seeking out a dietitian that is body positive and anti-diet is huge. Never, never, never go see a practitioner or anyone who makes you feel shame. And if it's an NP, a doctor, a dietitian, a coach, a whomever says, you're not okay, get away from them. Don't ever surround yourself with people who make you feel shame, because there's nothing wrong with who you are. Want to make that very clear to people. You want people to empower you. And by empowering you, that means we can start looking at what food freedom is. And I know for me, I go kind of like, close your eyes and we're jumping. We start immediately with exposure work. I don't care if your goal is weight loss or this or that. If you have food fears, we start with exposure work, because you can't reach goals until we get above that barrier. Nicole, I know you baby step just a little bit more than I do. I go right in there, and by exposure work, if let's say food freedom, I can't have peanut butter in the house, or I can't have ice cream in the house. We're going to the store and we're setting up exposures, which means first exposure is you're going to go to the store and you're going to just walk through the ice cream aisle. That's it. Where's your anxiety level doing that? Not high? Good. Now we're going to buy it. Okay. How's your anxiety level with that? Just buy it. It's in the car. Now it needs to sit in the car. It goes bad, whatever. We'll buy another one. What's your anxiety? Now we're bringing it in the house. What's your anxiety? Okay. We continue to bring anxiety levels down to the point where we can have a bowl of ice cream and it doesn't matter. The ice cream is just ice cream, like this chair or this table. It doesn't have power over me. I can have it around. And we introduce foods. At least I go pretty quickly with this to really hone in on, we've got to eat these foods regularly. If I have a piece of candy every single day, a small piece of candy every day, I'm not going to eat the whole bag at Halloween. Same thing with Christmas time and the Christmas things and Thanksgiving foods. People overconsume because they think that those are unhealthy foods, mainly because they overeat it. And we have the language going around saying, oh, if you eat green bean casserole, now work out this much. That's an association to, wow, that must be a bad food if I have to do all of that running. And it's not. But if we eat these foods regularly throughout the year, the week, the day, now they don't have power. So we go right away with exposure work to bring that anxiety down. I don't get into the feelings outside of anxiety though. And Nicole, maybe you can speak a little bit more about the other things.
Yeah.
Feelings. She does more with feelings.
I do a lot around the feeling aspect of it. Yeah. Yeah, so we definitely talk about what types of feelings are brought up through certain foods. It's interesting that you had mentioned, Trevor, right away about having fear, people having fears with food in general. Usually we see that more so in the eating disorder world. And I think that that's part of something that we all understand. And I have said this always from the most beginning of my practice, that I feel like most people don't have an eating disorder, but they have disordered eating on some way, shape, or form because of the mixed messages that we keep hearing. And that's really where it comes in. And so even when you're talking about food fears, Trevor, I'm even thinking it's more or less food confusion. So like right before this call, actually I had a client and he's like, what about all the sugar and ketchup? And I'm like, oh, are you eating a plate of ketchup? No, then you don't worry about it. So I mean, again, I'm just being sassy with that, but it's this whole concept of, we're focusing so much on these little things. And what happens is we end up in this like just cluster confusion and we don't know what's going on anymore. And then it turns into fear. Well, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. Oh my gosh, I'm going to die. Right.
Well, and those fears turn into rules then.
Completely.
Okay, because I don't understand sugar in ketchup, I won't eat it. Now I'm going to get sugar free. Now I'm not going to eat ketchup. So now I have a rule established.
Exactly.
Well, maybe I should look at these other things. Okay, I should go sugar free, and now I should do this and this and this. And the list of rules people creates for themselves ultimately leads to salad, an egg at breakfast, a salad with no dressing at lunch, and a chicken breast at dinner, to the point where then, sure, whatever. Yeah, you see weight loss. And then what happens? Oh, wow, Susie, you look so great. Wow, how'd you lose all that weight? Wow. Now they're like, well, people like me now. To the point where now disordered eating turns into an eating disorder, more food confusion. They've screwed up their gut. They've screwed up their brain.
Right.
And now they're at a place where they are unhealthy. Their iron levels are too low. They're suffering depression, relationship issues, anxiety. All of those things start to happen when we don't give. And it all started because of this weird worry around, for example, ketchup or something, or a doctor saying, ooh, your BMI is 26.
Yeah, don't listen to that ever. My gosh, don't listen to that ever.
No. So it's really, really sad because people go 0 to 100 pretty quick with food, and the confusion gets worse and worse and worse. And it's really, really, it goes quick. Like
it does.
It's not over time. I feel like people they really are struggling. And now, especially in our culture, it's just gotten so much worse than when I started practicing.
Yeah. And to the point too, then it starts turning into like a status thing or this group thing or a cult thing, or now, people are being accepted because they're in this whole paleo thing, and this is like a thing, and it's a family, and it's a whatever. And, and it's like, well, paleo isn't even a real thing, but okay, now it's turned into something, and and that's lacking a whole bunch of nutrition for people too, and causing a lot of problems. But, so it's interesting what we have going on, where the most simple, basic human need is simply to nourish the body. And it has become this awful experience for people now, this experience full of so much confusion and hurt and dissatisfaction with life. It's almost like,
Well, Nicole, I want to, really quick, I just want to share a story before not to cut you off, Trevor, because it is your podcast.
Good.
We just go at it.
This is perfect.
Keep going. And once you get us started, it's just like, I'm sweating. I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. So Nicole was talking about, like that brainwashing. And I had 2 clients years ago that were like, nope, we're doing paleo. And I said, okay, so what are you eating? And they're like, well, we're eating, butter and avocado and salad and meat and all the paleo things. And I said, okay, well, remind me again, because I know that they had told me, remind me again your health history. And both of them had parents that have had heart disease. And I'm like, that you're like ironically doing everything to make sure you end up with heart disease. And that's what's just like that's how powerful our culture is that to be thin, that's what's important, even though I know these things will cause heart disease. And that's what's so heartbreaking, I think, is like people's just, they'll die to make sure they're thin.
Yeah. Whew, I'm so excited. Like, I'm quiet, but that's because I'm trying so hard to like take it all in, even though it's recording. I still want to. So you've mentioned kind of like almost like tribes and communities and wanting to fit in. And like way at the beginning, you mentioned media. How have you noticed, like, have clients actively come up to you and like mentioned like, well, how come I can't look like the person on my Instagram feed? And how do you combat that? How do you convince people that that isn't like a do or die thing?
Well, not only is
it's so hard.
It's so funny because like I hear your words and I just am like, rah, rah, rah. But it's like, it's like, you know, not only is it not a do or die thing, but so much of that isn't reality. And that's the thing too. Like we have to understand almost, I mean, literally everything we see has been manipulated. Like just understand that everything we see has been manipulated, even if it's just been manipulated by one filter or one angle or one whatever. And like some of this other stuff that we're seeing, I mean, I work with 60-year-old men who have body image issues because of these groups that they're in, and like, oh, you know, this person's lifting all these things and they're all cut and ripped, and I'm like, did they do a photo shoot? Yeah. They dehydrated themselves for 2, if not 3 days before that, and they're starving.
Right.
What, you know, where is their life and freedom and all good things with that? Like, come on.
It's constant, Nicole, though. I mean, people do it with food. Like airbrushing food. They do it with models. And Trevor, I should send you, I've got some like a video of what they do. And I actually, there's a professional runner, Lauren Fleischman, who actually exposed because she was modeling running attire stuff or whatever. And she, in a blog, she exposed what her body actually looks like and then what they do to make her look the way that she looks when walking and when in these photo shoots. And it was just like, and I've used that in different groups of adult eating disorder patients, like, because and not just with everyone challenges me with that question. Well, I want to look like people do it to me. Well, I want to run like you, so I should eat like you. And I'm like, good, you're not me. Like, okay, you good eating cheeseburgers? Well, no, I want to eat the healthy things you eat. And I'm like, no, like that's weird. And so anyways, I share this article and this blog with them, and they're just mind blown because it's like, really? She's got cottage cheese legs. And I put that in air quotes. Yeah. All of us do. That's normal. That's just skin being skin. It doesn't mean that you're fat. It's just the structure of our body. Physiologically, it just, you know, I'm 5'2" on a good day. I can't get taller. I can't change my hormones. I can't change who I am. I can't be Nicole. I can't be anyone. And it's really hard to combat that though. But you have to always remind people, like, you're Susie and you are this person. And now we're starting with some affirmations, because you got to start learning that you are you and you got to love you. You need to find positive things about yourself. And if you're Susie, and I'm going to challenge you now to say, I love my body because blank. I love my personality because blank. I love my life because blank. Fill in the blank and say it to yourself routinely, because it is, affirmations are the fake it till you make it to getting yourself into a place of being able to accept who you are, your height, your weight, your shape, which is your body image. And then build on your own self-esteem. I've not always been this way. I've struggled with confidence around body, around sport, around eating and having food fears. And I'm here to say, like, anyone can do it. I was in the worst mental state of my life and didn't ever want to believe that I couldn't, you know, that I could eat these foods, because these were all, you know, quote unquote bad foods, and you have to exercise this much and at this time, and you have to look this way. And then you realize well, my life really sucks thinking all of these things.
Right,
Maybe there's a
right.
different way to think. And maybe I'm just going to be me. And when I'm me, people like me. I like myself. I do better at work. I do better in life. There's no issues with relationships and family. Wow. Maybe I just need to accept my wiggles and jiggles and these things about me and structures and all the genetics and things that are make up my body. And so I know for me, I use a lot of examples and then affirmations, get people going on those affirmations right out of the gate. And most people, they can't say one nice thing about themselves outside of like something really weird. Like, I like my earlobe, you know, like really odd things. And you're like, nope, we got to go a little deeper. Like, let's go to those areas. And you start doing maybe some mirror work with them, because if they're so disconnected from themselves, like, and only want to be someone else, we got to get them back to looking at themselves, seeing their body and accepting their body.
Yeah. So I very aggressively agree with every single thing you just said. And yes, I would love that, whatever like post or wherever that is, if you could send that to me, I would love that.
Yeah.
I want to highlight something you said and add on to it. So you said, when you act as your true self, people will like you. I want to add a word: the right people will like you.
Yeah.
So when you act as like a copy of someone else to fit in with some group that doesn't even make you feel good in the first place,
right,
it's important to, I talked previously about like auditing your relationships. How does that group even make you feel? If it's a group that's making you feel bad for looking the way you look and liking the things you like, maybe those aren't the right people to be around anyways. And
right.
so when you really start acting in accordance with your true self, I think you do gravitate the right people into your environment.
Yeah. But that also requires though really standing in your power and really wanting and desiring to actually have power. See, and that's a scary thing for people too. You know, I mean, rejection is probably one of the highest like anxiety
failure
things,
rejection.
You know, failure. Yeah, exactly. So that takes some practice in doing, I think, for some people for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is, I will be very honest, this is shattering a lot of my beliefs around, obviously, like, because my background is in fitness, it's in mindfulness. And so I always knew a lot of that is mindset. For some reason, I didn't think that was the case with food. I thought it was like, okay, you suck it up and you eat what you need to eat. So this is just really fascinating for me to hear that food too is all about mindset. And it seems like that's just the case with a lot of stuff, where it just starts with, like you said, like stepping into your power, stepping into who you are, and actually knowing like what you need and what you deserve, I guess. And yeah, so it's just like, it's happening all in real time. So it's crazy just to be retracting all these beliefs that I had. So I want to kind of close in on the other side. So we talked about, you know, not being fearful of foods, but then on the other side of that, once you get over that fear, how do you still set up those healthy habits of eating the things that you need to have a healthy body?
So can I just say something really quick though, before we even go there, actually, is what you were saying about the whole like sucking it up, and you kind of do what, first of all, the concept of sucking it up in general just makes me want to say a big F you to anybody who ever says that, because it's like, no, life doesn't have to be that way. I mean, sure, sometimes we have to suck it up and get out of bed when
go
we
to
don't
work.
want to, but yeah. You know what I mean? But when it comes down to something like that, you know, the thing is that this is part of the issue in general, is that there is such a misconception. This is where some of that fear kind of comes in, that I have to eat in a particular way to look a particular way. And the issue is, no, you don't. The other issue is that when you decide that you're just going to eat in this particular way so you can quote unquote try and look a particular way, that may not be the way your body wants to look, and it will fight you over that, because all it wants to do is achieve its balance. And that's where the disconnect is we start working against ourselves and not with ourselves. We have to understand that our body doesn't always want to do and be what you're trying to ask it to do and be, or even what you envision what you envision alone is probably so distorted. And so that's why it's so important that we're focusing on, okay, here's my shape. It doesn't matter how small I get. It's my shape, so it's kind of like that's still not actually going to change. And being smaller isn't actually going to make that much of a difference. So it's like we have to start accepting all of those pieces and just being like, okay, this is my shape. Like, I love it or whatever, or I want to balance it out a little bit. And that's where, the weight training piece comes in if that's really what you desire. But you know what I'm saying? Like we have to work with and support what we have and stop trying to, to again, starve ourselves into something that we're not. And most of the time people can't achieve whatever that is in their head. And that's where the sickness also continues, because they just want to try and keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. So it's just the whole piece on this whole idea that we have to eat in a particular way to be something.
Right. Well,
That's
everyone thinks we're like
really
wind up
important.
toys,
Yeah.
That's how people don't realize our body is like a physiological thing on a cellular level. Like all of that manipulation that people do with diets and
stress,
all the stress, all the things,
breathe.
They are creating tornadoes and hurricanes in their body with all the little cells and hormones and things.
Right.
And obviously this is the children's version of what actually goes on, but physiologically people do so much more damage by thinking that our bodies are just wind up toys that can be, wound to do something. And then later we're going to do this and this, and we're going to try to achieving that, that end goal of having the toy walk from one room to the other. And it's not going to, it falls over every single time.
Right.
So it's really about people grabbing onto nothing, because people want to grab something. They want to grab onto the diet, the pill, the this, the that. And something it's about literally,
always something outside of themselves.
And there's nothing to grab onto. And that's what makes us look probably not so glamorous at all. The fact that we value the body for what it is so weird and foreign and all of those things. So it's, you know what I mean? Like it's really hard for people to accept. And I know, being both of us having experience in the fitness industry, I know where you're coming from, Trevor, because that industry is so much about, willpower and discipline and, you did 10 push-ups. That's awesome, but not good enough. We got to do this. And now, we got to eat healthy. And it's like, okay, here's the thing on health. Like health is about, not eating the same breakfast every day. Some days I have a bowl of cereal and milk, and not just me. I mean, just in general. Maybe one day I have some eggs and toast, and another day is yogurt and granola. But we get really set because there's such a control issue with calories and logging. We get so stuck on, I'm going to just eat the same thing every day for breakfast because that's what I know and that's easier, right? Versus getting that variety. And when we get that variety, health can bloom so much better for us. We can get a variety of nutrients. We can have cake later on. We can have soda. We can have all of these things. We want to make sure people that it's not about eating 20 apples because that is health and all I eat all day is salad or whatever, or the opposite of all I eat all day are chips and candy and cake, like, or I just eat Burger King all day. Like, no. You want to do a little of everything every day where you're getting mind satisfaction, heart satisfaction, and tummy satisfaction. You're getting all three layers. What ultimately brings about the quote unquote health people are striving for. People claim they're striving for health. They're really striving for thinness. But for the sake of, not having that argument with people, they're quote unquote striving for health. And that means eating a variety of foods. And so you can still, you work on these exposures, you allow someone to, when a person is now eating ice cream, you can have ice cream regularly. If you choose to have that daily, here's what your day looks like to maintain your current weight. Here's what your day looks like. You might lose weight. Here's what your day looks like. And you might gain weight. It's an ebb and flow process. So ultimately we want the body to maintain in the middle. We never want highs and lows. That's when the body's like, what? So it's always about being in the middle. And so once you work on those exposures though, people, you take that, like you take the food off the pedestal. People might be like, oh yeah, there's ice cream around. I don't feel like it.
Totally.
No, I want some now. Or, you know, it becomes this very easy way to just kind of like roll with it versus there's a rule and I have it every night, or I have to have this much or whatever.
Because as we know, especially around these holiday times, it's then eventually people are going to completely rebel.
Exactly.
And then it becomes this control thing, like I deserve everything because
the new year's right around the corner. So I'll just eat everything until the new year. And it's like, no.
And that's where we also take a step back and we're like, yeah, you do deserve everything. And the issue is that you deserve to not starve yourself during the course of the year, not deprive yourself. I'm not talking about just food, but in the process, you're depriving yourself of life experiences because of some of these other hangups or these things you think you have to be doing to be a particular way.
Right.
And I cut you off, Annie, and I didn't.
No, you're fine.
I wanted to tie that piece in.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, Trevor? I think.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay, good. I wasn't
seriously like. I feel like I want to be courteous of your time, but I feel like I'm like just scratching the surface of how much information I could get from you two.
Oh, we're good. I know.
So, I have one quick question before I get into the whole finale. But because like now that we're actively in the holidays, like people are going to Christmas parties, New Year's parties, how do they avoid, and I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, this ties into the whole exposure therapy, getting over the fear. How do they avoid that negative spiral effect of they went to the Christmas party, they ate, more cookies than they thought was okay. So then they get all upset and fearful, which makes them freak out and maybe, go into eating something to comfort them. Yeah. Is that another thing that the exposure therapy will help prevent or, limit, is that kind of negative spiral effect?
Well, yeah, because of the fact that, again, like what you're even talking about is a total food being on a pedestal. So, the whole concept of like, even your words of, eating more cookies than they thought that they should. That's the thing. Again, they're not in line with what it is that they actually want. And the thing is like when you haven't had certain things for so long, it's like people go into these different behavior styles, if you will. And some of that is like the all or nothing, or the, oh my gosh, it's going to run away from me if I don't have it all right now. And so it's these distorted mindsets that start creeping in. And so, bottom line, to answer that question, it comes down to just centering yourself, not judging anything. And so we don't always have control over what's being offered to us, but we do have control over how we feel about it, how much we think we need at that time. And honoring our body too, of what does my body say? Am I good? Do I want more? Like just checking in. But also the whole concept is screw the concept of the certain foods. Who cares? It doesn't matter. That's what we have to start understanding. The food doesn't always matter. What matters is, are you honoring your body?
Right.
Did you leave and want to throw up? That's probably a problem. You know what I'm saying? I mean, unless that's what you went out and decided you wanted to do. But it's like, if you go in and be like, you know what, I just want to feel satiated. Great. That might be a little of this, it might be a little of that, it might be 10 cookies because you were like, I want 10 cookies. Fine.
And that's just it. And I want to add to what Nicole said. A lot of what I will, because I get that report from people sometimes and it's like, oh yeah. I did this happened and I ate those cookies and okay, what was your self-talk? We always want to be enforcing self-talk. And the first statement is, I ate X number of cookies or I ate X food. How do I feel? You're checking in with yourself. Wow, that makes me feel like crap. Not that you can't do it again, but it's saying, I ate those cookies because everyone was doing it and it felt good and I was enjoying myself and I felt hungry, and really honoring like, I made this decision and it's okay. I'm okay. Own it. Exactly. And I'm going to, accept that this was the choice I made. I don't need to deprive myself later. I don't need to eat all the foods later or the next day and so forth. I can just remember that, hey, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, have snacks. If I work out, I work out. If I don't, I don't. I'll do things that make me happy and go to work, et cetera, et cetera. I chose to do this and it's okay. It's not going to impact me to the degree that my brain tells me it will.
That's right.
And that self-talk can be really important.
It is. And we have to remember too, like our body is just simply giving us feedback. So if you had 10 cookies and you're like, whoa, well, maybe it's time you need to do 5. It's like, it's like giving you feedback that, okay, maybe I need a couple less. Great. Moving on.
We got to move on. We put too much energy into thinking about food and exercise, and we are not meant to be thinking about those things. Like it's not helpful to us on any level. It'll make things much worse. Yeah.
And we have to remember too that we cannot exercise our food away. We have to understand that. We don't earn our food and we can't exercise it off, period. And if we're in that kind of a relationship, that we got to look out for that, because that's very detrimental and we're missing a few things in there.
Right.
I'm going to have to get you back on here. I have so many more questions. All right. So just to be courteous of your time, I do a final 2 questions. But before that, I know you sent me over some links that I can put in the show notes, but just so people listening can hear, where can they connect with you if they're interested in any of the things you brought up today, if they're interested in learning about nutrition, if they're interested in learning about even how to start a podcast, where can people connect with either of you?
So they can go to my website, wayoflifenutrition.com, and in the shop section, you'll find all the work that Annie and I have done. And you can also sign up to have a consult with Annie and I if you wish, or you can also just make an appointment through that as well. And then betweentwopastries.com, that's of course where you can find our podcast as well. As any other thing that we might be promoting. We do have a group series that's going to be coming out that's going to be self-guided, that we also kind of want to promote right now too. So if that's something that you're interested in and you'd like to know more information, feel free to even just email us at betweentwopastries@gmail.com. Super simple. So really, if there's anything that you need, it's probably the easiest is probably just email us and just say, hey, what about this?
We do have a Facebook page too, Between Two Pastries. And I oftentimes on my Instagram, I'll post stuff about Between Two Pastries so people can find it there too, at my name, Annie Weiss.
Perfect. All right, let's get into it. So because you two are both, it sounds like you're so good at, owning who you are. And like you said, stepping into that power. I'm especially curious to hear your answer to this next question. And I'll let you each answer individually. What right now is the biggest obstacle between you and your best self?
Is my husband going to listen to this podcast?
That's entirely up to him. I don't know.
He might. I don't know.
Right. Me and say that again, the best version of myself.
Yep. The biggest obstacle between you in this exact moment and the best version of yourself, whatever terms that is for you.
I would say for me, and this is kind of like probably one of those standard answers in an interview, but the fact that I'm a caretaker, it leaves me stuck in Milwaukee. With lots of opportunity outside.
That's powerful. I don't think that's standard by any means. That's powerful. And Nicole, what about you?
Well, I guess, I have a different thought on things. I always feel like where we are right now is actually the best we can be right now, because it's based off of what we know right now. And I feel like we're always evolving. So right now with where I'm at, I feel like I'm at the best version of myself in this moment. And if you ask me that next year, I'll be in whatever that is, because I just feel like when you take every day and you just put that intention out of wanting to serve as best as you can, and I don't know, I just I don't
That's
really
a
know how to
Nicole
answer that
answer.
question.
That's an awesome answer, seriously. And
Wow.
I think it's one of those things where like there's no right answer to that question. It's just whatever you think. And that's a really beautiful place to be, though, is where you do spend every moment of every day just living in that, like, you are doing the right things, you are that are true to you. And so I think that's an amazing answer. And
Well,
I'm really happy to hear that is your thought process.
Oh, well, thank you for that. But I feel like people and myself historically have always been very hard on themselves. And I think what's important is that we really have to accept ourselves everywhere in any way we can, period, you know? And so that's
inspiring. That's all right. We'll leave it at that. All right. So the last question is less of a question and more of throughout the whole conversation. It's a nice back and forth, especially on your end. I learned a ton, but now you get to directly speak to the audience. So for the last question, what is a challenge that you would give to the audience where if they do this challenge, they'll either, learn something about themselves or it'll better their life? Like one thing they can do.
Stop dieting. Just stop.
Yeah, I think just stop. Just stop and pay attention to yourself. Like, just pay attention to yourself. Like, I'm even thinking about, like, even at every meal, is this a meal you actually want?
Right.
Does this, like, do you want these flavors? Is there a different flavor you might desire? And how often do you give that to yourself? Or start
that
now,
mindfulness, right?
I don't know. We have lots of little things that we could, but
I think areas. I really think in kind of the like hustle and bustle mentality a lot of people have, just stop is like the perfect thing for them to do. So that's a really good challenge. And I always make sure, obviously I need to, in my head, I can't expect other people to do it if I'm not willing to take your advice. So that's something I definitely am going to implement is before I eat a meal, I'm just going to stop, think about, okay, not only I am big on, I like certain foods, but I do think I need to implement that more of like, do I really enjoy what I'm eating or am I just eating it because it's, the right thing to eat? So that's going to be really big for me as this whole conversation has been. So that is pretty much it to both of you. Seriously, thank you so much for coming on. This is the first one that really, I mean, I was just sitting there almost dumbfounded because like I could almost see all these, truths of mine just getting, set aside. And that was really a powerful conversation for me. So I really hope it is for other people. So I want to thank both of you for taking the time. I know you both have busy schedules. You have a lot of people that you're serving, helping. So just to offer up your time is amazing. Also, I want to thank you for the knowledge that you're getting out to people, not only your clients, but through your podcast, just helping people really get back in tune with who they are and get back in tune with loving themselves for who they are. I think that's something the world needs to hear more about. So I just want to thank you both for that.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So for everyone listening, if you have questions about anything they talked about, be sure to comment below. And if there's someone, if it's you and you've gotten to this point, you've got the information. If there's somebody else who you really think this would help, share it. That's the purpose of this podcast, is to get this information to people who need to hear these amazing guests talk. Other than that, that's all I got. Thank you both for coming on, and everyone listening, we will talk to you next time.